want to start by introducing to the question Andrew Solomon, who is kind of an expert on the topic and is a friend of Intelligence Squared. You are a lecturer yourself at Columbia University Medical Center. You've written a lot of books, a lot on the topic of the role of families, including the slam dunk amazing book Far from the Tree, which I bet everybody here has read at one point or another. So I just want to ask you, Andrew, as you've been listening to this with your sharp ears, what question has come to your mind?
Well, dozens of questions have come to my mind from the extremely interesting and evocative statements by the panelists. And I thought a lot of the philosopher John Locke, who was the one who originally said that children were a blank slate, whose character could be turned this way or that as easily as water, and who notably never had children. I'm going to point to two studies that I think are of interest. The first is one that was done by Myrna Weissman at Columbia, in which she looked for solutions to the treatment of depressed children. And she tried dozens and dozens of different treatments and ultimately concluded that the most effective way to resolve depression in children was to treat their mothers. And the second is a study that was done at Yale about 10 years ago, in which they were studying the tendency of abusive or neglectful parents to have abusive or neglectful children, and they pinpointed genes that were associated with vulnerability to parental influence, which is to say that if you didn't have those genes, you could be very badly abused and still turn out okay. And if you did have those genes, then it was highly likely that you would be transformed by the abusive environment and would go on to be abusive or often criminal yourself. So the question that I would put to the panelists is whether it's really possible to disentangle nature and nurture, and also whether you aren't in some ways making false arguments by attempting to universalize and to establish proportions. Some people, I think, are largely the way they are as a result of their genetics. Some people are largely the way they are as a result of their environment, and most people represent a mixing of the two, the very mixing you've both acknowledged and that led a previous audience member, you've just said, at a previous debate to say that the debate itself was one between people who agree with each other.
I think there was a number of different questions there, really. And the last one was, can we disentangle nature and nurture? And I think based on 100 years of research, using different designs, that have different problems, twins, adoption, they converge on the same conclusion of the importance of genetics. So yes, I think you can disentangle them.
Regarding whether or not you can ever disentangle nature and nurture, so I'm reminded of something from actually your own book. So in Far from the Tree, you talk about musical prodigies at one point in time, and you talk about how, is it innate talent or is it practice? And when you're looking at people who are at the very extreme end of talent, you say, well, we can't possibly describe all of this with practice, right? There seems to be this role of innate talent. But if no one ever touches a musical instrument, then obviously they're not going to have any sort of musical talent. So for any one person, how much of it is talent, how much of it is practice, it's impossible to say.